Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. Due to the public health emergency in New Jersey, the board will be suspending the in-person meeting tonight and having this meeting virtually. This meeting has been advertised on the district website with the link for the public to join. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. We already pledged allegiance in executive, so Heather, if you'd like to take the roll call.
Sure. Mr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Mrs. Brenda?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Ms. Nathans?
Here.
Mrs. Santoro?
Here.
Mrs. Tober?
Here.
Ms. Virtue?
Here.
Mrs. Leith?
Here.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Rye, I forgot you.
Here.
Okay. We do not have any correspondence.
Okay. Heather, on item number 7, they're suspending the policy, or is it something that we need to take a vote on?
We should make a motion and then we can do a voice vote on that one.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to suspend the policy for public meetings on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to suspend the policy for public meetings.
Second, somebody?
I second.
Okay. Then we can go into the report of the superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. At this point, most of us are a lot more comfortable with virtual conferencing than we were 2 months ago. Whether Zoom, Meet, WebEx, Skype, these virtual meetings are unavoidable in our current lives. While I thank all who are in attendance, I must say I look forward to the day that we are back together in the high school's community room, though quite frankly, we've got a lot of people here, so we might have had to move to the media center. From a standpoint of schooling, we're holding on, waiting for Governor Murphy's decision regarding reopening, soliciting input from parents and seniors for events like graduation in the event that we are not back together. Planning for end-of-year housekeeping, like collecting textbooks and distributing caps and gowns in a world of social distancing. Thinking about what the fall will look like, and yes, there's hoping for the best, but honestly, a lot more time is spent planning for the worst, always considering how best to hold tight to the spirit of our community without placing anyone at risk. I continue to be incredibly grateful for our staff. Teacher Appreciation Week is historically recognized in early May, and I think every SHSD family recognizes now more than ever the devotion of our teachers, not to mention how hard it is to teach. As I included in my recent community letter, teachers undoubtedly never imagined a situation like this when they entered the profession. Yet day in and day out, they balance the needs of their families with those of the students they serve. My hat goes off to them all. I'm proud too of our administrative team. As someone who's worked in the corporate sector and the world of education, the latter is generally a world that is predictable, but that is no longer the case. And our administrative team has scrambled to pivot, adjust, and consider what ifs in ways they too probably never imagined. Their service and collaboration is off the charts. And support staff, secretaries, case managers, counselors, nurses, media specialists, and paraprofessionals are all working to buttress staff and students while we continue in this vein. Meanwhile, custodians and maintenance are stewarding our facilities and carefully attending to our grounds. Technology staff has helped us all maintain our connectivity and productivity, and our transportation staff has been nothing short of stellar in their service to deliver food for the district. This spirit of service is what I would like to think defines us as a community. Until things get back to something closer to normal, our student representatives' reports and curricular presentations are temporarily on hold. In regards to tonight's agenda, I would like to point out that the board will be voting on a budget for 2021 that was created before this pandemic began. As the board president and I so often have said to one another, a budget is merely a plan. At this point, the plan is based on the information that we currently believe to be true. That is what this budget represents. As required by law, it has been advertised and approved by the county superintendent. Yes, there may be a need to revisit the plan should the economic impact of the pandemic cause us to do so, but for tonight, the plan needs to be considered and voted on based on the information that is currently available. Thank you all for your strength and commitment to the students of SHSD. We hope that your families are all safe and well, that you have enough to eat, that your livelihood is secure, and that your children are learning. Thank you. That concludes the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Dempsey. Well, good evening to everybody. It's nice to see some faces that are not my family. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our superintendent, administrators, and staff for their amazingly quick response to the governor-issued shutdown of the New Jersey schools. Thanks to their foresight and planning, our district was able to move immediately to virtual learning without days or weeks of interruption to our students. This was no small feat, and really deserves acknowledgement and praise. All of you have been amazing. Well done. Although no system is perfect, our administrators and teachers have been alert and flexible, doing everything possible to meet the needs of our students. Moving forward, we have much uncertainty. We don't know if schools will reopen soon or will remain closed for this school year. We don't know what the requirements will be for how we run schools in the fall. We don't know what sort of financial repercussions COVID-19 will have on our school budget going forward. We can't, however, expect a completely new normal. Be assured that these conversations are happening every day in our district, and we are trying to anticipate what the guidelines might be. We are extremely fortunate to have Dr. Dempsey and our administrative team who are thinking about possible scenarios which prior to COVID-19 were unthinkable. Imagination, foresight, and planning are key to successful preparedness. The board is grateful for such leadership in these challenging times. Public questions and comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public questions and comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input. Do we have any public questions and comments at this time on actionable agenda items?
Yeah, Christine Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm at 18 Liberty Road. My question is for the board. What is your plan in terms of the reduction in staff at the elementary level and the increase in classroom size from the 3rd grade to the 4th grade for next year?
I don't think that's an item on the, is that an item on the agenda, or do you consider?
I don't know. I'm here to just ask that question. If it doesn't get answered, then I guess I'll find another way to find out. But that's my question for this evening.
Do we consider this something
Jamie,
that would be in?
Perfect question.
Jamie, I'm comfortable speaking to that.
Great.
If you, so I can certainly say that the budget presentation that we did last time spoke in general to the fact that from a personnel standpoint, we were looking at decreasing overall enrollment. I know that we are looking at our number of kindergarten registrations, and certainly we see a marked decrease in terms of the number of kindergarten sections that we anticipate needing for next year. You referenced the class sizes, and certainly the board did consider changes to that regulation a while back. I don't quite recall, it was this year, but I don't recall the date. But certainly that was outside of any budget considerations. It was more around the fact that the way the regulation had been laid out, it looked at numbers for Bedwell, for the middle school, and for the high school. And there was a sense that those bands were too broad. So we looked at how to have something in place that would kind of step through the grades a little bit more. While the numbers that are in there for some of the grades at Bedwell may be slightly higher than they were, certainly the numbers for the middle school, maybe whoever that was could mute themselves.
Sorry, that's me. That's my.
That's all right. Okay, those numbers are actually lower. So we felt strongly that, you know, we shouldn't have a class of fourth graders that was maybe 23 kids, and then a class of fifth graders that was maybe 30. We were trying to sort of balance that a little bit. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, so I mean, I guess so in other words, we're funneling 6 classes of third grade into 5 fourth grade sections. Is that essentially what's happening?
No, I do not know that we have defined any of those sections definitively, but that is not the intent at this moment, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further comments on the budget or actionable agenda items? Okay, if there are none, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, Janice.
Thank you, Janice. Second?
I'll second. That's Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, then we can move on to our finance
Wait,
portion.
I still have to do a roll call on that one.
Oh, yeah, right.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay. Bob?
No, a question for Heather. Do you want me to just talk about the budget and hold my other finance items to after we have the public hearing on the budget? Because it seems a little disjointed, but I can do either.
Well, the way we had it in the agenda was that you would give your committee report and the discussion first, and then we would do the public hearing. But honestly, Bob, either way works. What would you feel more comfortable doing?
I think most of the items that, well, actually, I'll go through and I'll give my committee report, because some of the items might impact is the budget. So if people want to hear it, you know, I can do that. So anyway, I'll start with the finance committee report. We met on April 22nd for an hour and a half last week. The first item we talked about was funding of the ice hockey program at the high school. If you remember, the committee last month talked about ice hockey, and we wanted to increase funding beyond the $15,000 cap, which is currently in place. Heather Gogan went back to the athletic director and see if we had any extra money, in the budget, and we did not. So the board, so the committee felt that because we're not doing spring sports at the moment, and we felt that next year we could probably find another $5,000 to $10,000 to increase funding, that we would let it sit for a while and revisit it over the summer to see how we do with spring sports now and what money that we might save. And once the school starts, maybe see if there's any transfers that we can make, in the budget. But we're not going to change the budget as it is etched out at the moment. So we're going to postpone any further conversation on that because we still don't know whether we're going to have the same number of players. They're projecting 21 players versus 15 players at the moment. We also talked about the stipends for sports and co-curricular. The board had talked about whether we should pay all the stipends and things like that since spring sports are kind of stopped, so on and so on. And as we were talking about that, the state legislation passed a law that we have to pay all the stipends that are in the collective bargaining agreement. So we are going to do that on advice of our council. So they usually get 2 payments on sports stipends. So we're going right now. They're getting they're going to get 3 payments, I think. Isn't that right, Heather?
I don't think we talked the logistics of that.
Right. But they're going to get paid.
They're going to get
amount.
paid in
They're gonna
full
get paid
by the end of the season.
They're
Yes.
going to get paid is the full amount. So that's the way that went right there. We talked about the Mercy bus transportation contract, which is coming up for renewal. We think they've done a good job with their bus service. So we are going to renew that contract with a 1.7 increase. So that will cost us next year $632,000 and change. However, the county has to approve it's the contract, so we can't vote on it until probably our next meeting, but no later than June. We talked about payments to the Somerset County Educational Service Commission. Since we're not using a lot of their services right now, they're the people who support all our who transport all our students to other schools outside of our schools. And because this organization shares, the buses between kids going to other schools as a partnership, that the county business administrator is going to try to get a lower payment for the bus services that are not being used right now. So we should know more next month on whether we will have a savings on that bus service. We also talked about the aid in lieu, which is it's a strange word that some people may not know what it means, but that's what parents receive for transporting their children to non-public schools. The state law, they get $1,000 per child, which represents $280,000 for our school district. They get paid in 2 increments, one in mid-year and one at the end. So we want to find out whether we should prorate that or whether we're obligated to pay the full amount. We don't know. So we're going to reach out to our council to get an interpretation of what the law says on that, because we don't know what we're obligated to do with this new school closure. We then next talked about the Machio's food service contract, which is up for renewal. They are asking for a management fee of $15,600. And we pay all the time and materials. And so we pay whatever people they have working there and the cost of the food and transportation. They did tell us that because our rotate drop schedule at the high school will increase cost, they are recommending a 30-cent increase per meal so we don't lose money on the operations. We always made a little profit, not much, but we don't want to lose. So we are thinking of following that advice, but the committee wanted more information, like how much did we spend in the last year or two, and we'd like to see the contracts. So Heather is going to get that for us by our meeting next Wednesday. On the agenda tonight, you'll see there's a resolution for approving a safety grant for $8,894 from the New Jersey School Insurance Group. The committee recommends agreeing to that receipt, and that's going to be used for the repair of the fire escape at the Alcott building. Next, we have to amend the resolution on the agenda you'll see tonight for transferring money from the Capital Projects Fund to the Debt Service Fund. Last month, we voted on moving the entire amount of the money, and that was incorrect, so we're amending it. So you'll see tonight we're moving $129,000 into the Debt Service Fund, and we'll do the same for the next 2 years in a row. So we'll move it over the next 3 years. And lastly, the committee felt that the budget as presented at the last month's meeting, we had a PowerPoint. We felt that there's no need to do another PowerPoint this evening. The PowerPoint's online, so the public can view the PowerPoint, and the budget summary is there for the last 30 days. So the committee is recommending the board approve the budget as presented at the public hearing. So I'd like to move to the public hearing on the budget. So we'll open that. Does the board have any questions on the school budget in particular?
Actually, Bob, we need a motion to go into the public hearing first.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to go into the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I got Bob and Tim.
Okay, so all in favor, or do you need a roll call?
Voice vote is good. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So are there any questions from the board on the school budget as presented last month? Seeing none, anybody from the public has a question? Seeing none, I will move to close the public hearing and move action items 1 through 2 on the budget.
You have a second?
I'll second it. Cool.
Nicole.
So we need a roll call, Heather.
Yes, this we need a roll call on. Okay, Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to move finance action items 1 through 7. Do I have a second on that?
I second that, Janice.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on my report or any of the agenda items?
I just had a quick question, Bob, regarding the stipends. I had seen a note that for BMS, legal was being consulted regarding the stipends. Is that still an open?
Yeah, we're not sure what to do on the spring sports there because the sports never started and the parents never paid. And the parents pay over half of the cost. So whether we're obligated to pay for those, I don't think so, but that's my own personal opinion, but we'll see what happens there. So,
Okay,
so that's a question. I don't know.
okay. Thank you.
Any other comments?
All right, so we will do we'll do a roll call, Heather.
Yep, ready to go here. Let's see. Bob, Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober, Mrs. Tober,
She's saying yes. I can see her lips.
oh, you can see her? Okay. Ms.
Kathy,
Virtue,
you're muted.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
Bob, you want to move into facilities?
Yes. The Facilities Operation Committee met last Wednesday, the April 22nd, for about 45 minutes. First item we talked about was our summer rentals of our school buildings. The YMCA summer camp and the recreation department who use our facilities are still interested. But right now, until the governor tells us what we can do these next few months, we don't know what to tell them other than we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So we'll talk about that more, I'm sure, as we go back, we go into these next couple months. We also talked about the Mercy bus transportation contract, so I'm not going to repeat what I just said. In the finance, it was the same thing. We also talked about the resolution that you'll see that we're going to vote on in just a minute is the emergency generator for the Bedwell Elementary School. We opened the quotes a few weeks ago. We had 7 quotes. The low bid was $224,607, and the high was $70,000 higher than that. But the good news is we had put in the budget $275,000, so it came in under what the estimate was, and the contractor is the same contractor who is the middle school emergency generator. So that work should go smoothly because we know who they are and they're going to start this summer. We talked about the best ways to deliver tonight's agenda items to all the board members, and we felt that we should talk to each member to see which way they wanted to receive all the information so they could review over the next over the 3 or 4 days before our meeting this evening. So that was done. And the last thing that we talked about was, computers for our students while they're home. A lot of school districts have a computer. They call it one-on-one. There's a lot of school districts that have been doing that for, I know some have been doing it for 7 or 8 years. We do not have one computer for every child, but we were able to get computers for every child during the shutdown right now. But the committee has to think about what's going to happen in this fall, what's going to happen next year. If this happens again, we got to be prepared to get the proper electronic equipment in every child's hands and every family. So we felt that we're asking the superintendent to gather the information on how things are going now, reach out to other schools. It's like Pat's schools, who has the one-on-one, and she gave us a lot of good feedback and kind of help the board talk about this issue these next few months. Because if we want to change our policy, spend money in technology to be prepared, we should do that. So right now, we don't have any answers. We just want to talk about it. We want to study it. We want to come up with a plan. So we're not going to be scrambling at the last moment trying to get equipment in everybody's hands. So we're going to be talking about that for months to come, I am sure. Anyway, that's what we talked about. I'm going to move action items 1 through 4. Do I have a second?
I second, Janice.
Any questions on what we talked about or what's on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, let's have a roll call, Heather.
Yep. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay, we can move on to curriculum, Janice.
Okay, so the curriculum committee met on April 21st for 2 hours. And we discussed various subjects, beginning with the Latin offerings. So for 2021, the committee discussed ways to help meet the demand for Latin next year. Courses will continue to be co-seated at the high school. After that, we had a discussion on a few items. The first one was Principals Scott Nigel, Lisa Garofalo, and Amy Fallon updated the committee regarding instructional plans during the current health-related school closure. Just before the sudden closing of schools, our administrators worked together and were ready to meet the new demands required to teach virtually. Hence, a course of instruction was quickly rolled out. There was and is a need to be flexible. Teachers now have meetings with supervisors. Needs of all students are being met. Teachers focus on English, language arts, math, science, and social studies. Related arts have been creative with students, and the high school is following an A-B schedule. Administrators reported that our teachers have, quote unquote, risen to the occasion. After that, we talked about high school code of conduct, and Scott explained that the high school code of conduct is a progression from the Bedwell school to middle school to the high school. Any disciplinary action taken is done so with the intent to teach students. Since each situation is different, the consequences for a student's behavior will be different. It is important to know that consequences which are given to the student are meant to be a learning experience to have a positive effect or influence on the student. Then we talked about, gifted and talented. Well, that topic was postponed due to lack of time. Let's see, we just mentioned later, just for our information, elementary math program proposals. Teachers are currently being surveyed and a recommendation is expected in May. We were going to talk about the calendar for 21-22, but the committee thought this was not the right time to propose a new calendar due to the heavy closure. Strategic planning sessions will be rescheduled once we have an idea of when the health-related closure is over. So let's see, I would like to move items 1 and 2 on the agenda. And can I have a second for that?
I'll second Janice, Sam.
Kathy.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion? Okay, so I guess roll call.
Okay. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay, we can move to personnel and policy. Heather?
Okay, hi. So Heather, shall we start with the contract?
Sure, so it's on the agenda the same way that it was with the finance, where you could do the committee report and discussion, but however makes most sense to you.
Okay, so I can just do, do you want me to do them all together or discuss the contract, close that out, and then do the committee report?
In terms of voting, we would do the contract first, and then we would do the rest of the items second. So if you want to wait to do your committee report until afterwards, that might make sense.
Okay, yeah, let's do it that way. So I'm going to start with the reopening of Dr. Dempsey's contract. Tonight, we will be approving the revised contract for Dr. Dempsey that as a board, we discussed and agreed upon at the end of January this year. I will provide some background and an overview of the changes made. When we signed and approved Dr. Dempsey's original contract in 2018, the state of New Jersey had a cap on superintendent salaries. Per her contract, if that cap was lifted, Dr. Dempsey could, the contract could be reopened for negotiation. In fact, it said it would be reopened for negotiation at that point. In July of 2019, the cap was lifted by our governor. After completing the Shea and Shaw negotiations and finalizing their contracts, the board began to review Dr. Dempsey's contract in late January of this year. We have made revisions, and that is what is on the agenda for approval this evening. The areas that were impacted were salary and benefits. We have agreed to increase Dr. Dempsey's salary for the 2019-2020 school year and retroactive to July 20th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 as an annual salary of $180,796. I'm sorry, $180,796. We will then increase for the next school year by the amount of $5,004 and the remaining 2 years of the contract by $4,800. We also provided Dr. Dempsey the same reduction in contribution to benefits as we did for the rest of the district employees. The board felt that these changes are fair and in keeping in line with the contracts negotiated for all Shea and Shaw members. This is the contract that we will be voting on to approve this evening. So I would like to move item A. Heather, is that what you want me to do right now?
So first, we should have discussion among board members. Then we need a motion to, then we open it to public comments. I don't think we have the motion for the public hearing yet. So we need a motion for the public hearing with the second. And then we have board discussion. Then we open it for public comment. And then we close the public comment. And then we do the vote. So right now, what we need is a motion with a second to go into the public hearing.
I motion to go into the public hearing, Pat.
I'll second Kathy.
Okay, board discussion. If there's none, then we're open for the public comments.
I was just gonna say that I know this seems so long ago because it was January, but you know, the contract had to be approved by the county superintendent and there were some delays with that. So that's why this seems like ages ago when we talked about this, I remember, but that's the reason why. Any public comment? Okay.
Okay, so should we move to roll call?
So now we need a motion to close the public hearing and then we can do the roll call.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I second, Janice.
Okay, and then we can do the roll call now. So Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so now Heather, I can continue with personnel, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so personnel met on April 21st at 11:30 via Google Meet, like the rest of the committees. And we met for 2 hours. All committee members were present. Now my job is pretty easy because most of what we discussed has already been detailed through other committees. Dr. Dempsey briefly reviewed the Latin enrollment for the 2021 school year and just informed us of curriculum's direction and any associated personnel that would be needed would be decided once the path has been firmly determined. Dr. Dempsey then reviewed the process for informing the spring coaches, as Bob has already touched upon, and we were just briefed on that. And we just briefly discussed the timing of April and May meetings and what is required by statute as far as teacher renewals and timing of notifications. So at this point, I would like to move personnel items on the agenda 1 through 3. Can I get a second?
Second it, Nicole.
Thanks. Any discussion?
All right, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I will move on to policy. In policy, we reviewed and discussed the Strauss Esme alert, the first half, and the committee was fine with all the recommended changes for the policies. So you will see that they are in first reading tonight. And I would like to move agenda item number 1 in policy. Any discussion?
Can we get a second on that?
Second, Janice.
Thank you, Janice. If there's no discussion, I'll do the roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay, Kathy, Community Relations?
Sure. Thanks, Jamie. So the Community Relations Committee met on April 23rd via Google Meet for about an hour. And we had all our committee members in attendance, along with Dr. Dempsey and Colleen Butler. The committee had a rather long dialogue, basically on the topic of BOE communications and possible tactics for implementing a more strategic, cohesive, targeted, and purposeful approach to communicating with the public. Furthermore, it was suggested that perhaps creating a formal communication plan could help us to effectively achieve the objectives that I just outlined. Additionally, it was also suggested that such a plan should address or could address educating the public around key components such as negotiations, field and stipends, and fundraising. So in terms of next steps, the committee thought that it would be beneficial to ask our school board's liaison, Gwen Thornton, to come and perhaps share some best practices with us that other districts are using around improving communications. And we just got confirmation today that she will be joining us for our next committee meeting, and we look forward to that. So no further actions to move, but any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, at this time, we can take comments on supplementary matters from the board. Anyone have anything to say? No? Okay.
No, now matters. It's Sam. I just wanted to extend again, a public and heartfelt thank you to our teachers and our administration for their flexibility and the job that they've done in unprecedented circumstances. I think that it's something that should be commended from every angle. And just as a board member, as a parent, I just wanted to express that publicly. Thank you all very much.
Great. Okay, if there is no other supplementary matter comments from the board, we can take public questions and comments on non-agenda item, any item. Do we have any of those?
Joe Folia,
Hello, Joe.
how you doing?
Good.
I hope everybody is safe and well at home. The issue of stipends has been discussed by the officers of SHE. It also, we have had input from NJEA. And we feel strongly that the board has an obligation to pay all of the stipends, including the middle school stipends. This goes beyond Governor Murphy's decree. This goes beyond that, in that the board has to break stipends with a 60-day period and board action. And right now, 60 days would take us almost into July. Our position is, because of that, the board is obligated to pay all the stipends. And I'll be addressing this issue with Gretchen tomorrow on email. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Any further comments on anything non-agenda related?
Yeah, I'm back. It's Christine Kelly, 18 Liberty Road. I realize I asked you that question earlier out of out of line. I don't come to these meetings often, but I am a school teacher. And I am very concerned about classroom sizes going up. It is a problem. Specifically, as a parent in this district, I want to know specifically third grade. I'm going back to it because I know the administration knows who they're riffing, and I know that at some point it's going to come out. I want to know now, how many sections of fourth grade will there be next year? And how many students will be in those classes?
Gretchen, do you
Can I
wanna-
address this? Sure. Hi, Ms. Kelly. Certainly, I understand everything you're saying, and what I can say to you with honesty and fidelity is that there has been no conversation in any building with any administrator or with the board to say that we are increasing class sizes. I think we are all concerned at the moment about social distancing, and the idea of putting more bodies in a classroom, it does not at all dovetail with what is on our minds these days. The conversations around that regulation were outside of any practical decision making in terms of next year. The year after that, they were looking at what made sense to us from a theoretical standpoint. We know that it is always unpredictable somewhat to look at grade levels. We have kids come in, we have kids go out. I would be lying to you if I said to you, I'm looking right now at numbers that say, I anticipate different numbers of sections moving from one grade to another. What we are looking at is, a decrease in the number of kindergarteners we expect. But we also know that we have had years where we have made decisions and then had to come back to revisit them. Our elementary principal was sharing with the board in executive a time where somebody was told there wasn't a position, and then by the time September rolled around, the position was there. So I feel very comfortable telling you that there have been no decisions, discussions, anything in which we would say we're looking to have bigger class sizes and at Bedwell. That is not something that's on the table. That is not something we're talking about.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I just need to know, like, how many sections are there going to be? Can you answer that?
And I'll be honest with you, I don't have the numbers of how many sections are in all the grades in front of me. And so I don't want to give you a number. And then Amy says to me, wait, you used the wrong number from the wrong grade. I can certainly follow up with you if you want to email me, and I can send you that. I'm not trying to be coy. I just don't want to put something out there that's erroneous.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing.
Oh, hi, Sama Habibi, 8 Mosley Road, Gladstone. I am I'm like in awe of what the teachers have done, what the administrators have done, what the bus drivers have done. I've been in contact with the bus drivers who are making deliveries to families, with the teachers and how they're handling this. I'm sure they have a million things going on in their homes, and yet they are teaching my kids. So thank you so much for that. And I've been in touch with the administrators. They've been amazing through this process. You guys have just done an amazing job, considering you only had really a week to prepare for this and a day at Bedwell to hand out those packets. So I thank you all so much for your time and effort. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Sam, I just want to say that we recognize all of your efforts on behalf of the community. So I appreciate everything you're saying, but there is nobody who is more committed to the good than you are. So
I would like to also echo that thanks to Sama. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Yes, thank you, Sama, for all you've been doing.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
Hi, this is Amy Hendershot at 80 Tower Mountain in Bernardsville. I have a question going back to the numbers of children in classrooms, and I appreciate everything that was just stated. I'm just curious, at the level of the high school, I saw that chart that showed there would be the number of, in the high school classes, 30 people in a classroom could be the limit or the number?
Amy,
Do you know anything about
those numbers haven't been changed at all. So while I recognize that's what has been documented, I would say that just as we do in all the buildings, we are committed to offering as many options for kids as we can, while maintaining, what is reasonable. But certainly, again, there's no message to say we're intending to have bigger classes here.
Okay, just after, we're all in this pandemic clearly, and everyone's doing a sensational and generous job. And I just want to make sure when we do go back that we don't compromise the education that the kids get in this wonderful community because we cut staffing positions or anything.
Right. No, we understand that. We know the challenge is ahead. I mean, I think every teacher worries about students who may return to school and will feel that space in terms of where we wish they were and where they really are. And certainly the number of bodies in a classroom always has an impact on the efficacy of the instruction. So I hear you.
Thank you.
Hi, Gretchen. This is Kristen Malitsky from 93 Douglas Ave. I also just wanted to say one more thing about the class size. I know you're saying here tonight that you understand and everybody understands coming out of a pandemic, we cannot raise class sizes. So are the class sizes not going to be raised, or what? Nobody is comfortable with that. I can't imagine that happening right now. And I also can't imagine staff being reduced at this point after these teachers are working so hard right now and doing the most amazing jobs. It just really concerns me.
I think there's a difference between the conversation surrounding class size and the conversation surrounding staffing. Certainly personnel is not something that we would ever get into the details of publicly, but the board and the administration is always charged with balancing the staffing needs. And so when I look at the numbers from the demographer that over the next 5 years predict a decrease of about 100 kids, I can in good conscience say to you that at some point staff are not going to be, their jobs aren't going to be impacted. But that is a separate conversation from the conversation around class size.
I understand. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay. If there are no other comments, we can make a motion to.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Jamie.
Thank you, Bob. Second, somebody?
Second, Janice.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, everybody, for attending. It's nice to see you.